Olá pessoal, estamos aqui para mais uma entrevista e dessa vez temos um convidado dos mais ilustres hoje para falar sobre um pouco de Kanban, um pouco sobre como é que estamos no Kanban no mundo, algumas informações muito importantes dentro da Kanban University, mas não se esqueça, Kanban Brasil vai acontecer nos dias 28 e 29 de setembro, já temos alguns keynotes confirmados, David Anderson, Jim Benson, e o Call for Papers vai até apenas dia 26 de junho. Tá, então corre, tá? Corre que o prazo está no fim e você já sabe que a gente não estende esse prazo. Joey, bom dia.
Bom dia, Juliano.
First class of English, Portuguese, sorry. Sorry. Okay. Joey, thank you for accepting the inviting to this small interview. It's not an interview, it's more a conversation, it's more a chat that we can talk about. And I watched your last session in the last year. It was awesome. You thought made a excellent explanation there. But I want to explore a little bit. First, please introduce yourself for the people. Maybe.
Oh yeah, thanks so much, Juliano. So I'm the Vice President for Community Development and Product Management here at Kanban University. So I focus on making sure we grow our community and also manage and grow our products here at Kanban University.
Excellent. So, and next thing I want to you to revisit the topic that we talked last year, and let people know what is about. What is this wishful thinking that you and Todd presented there?
Yeah. So the general thesis of what we had last year was we were focusing on sort of the typical things that a lot of people see in the industry. So those who are doing Agile or trying to be Agile, or those who are dealing with transformations and struggling with transformations, there's a lot of focus typically on the higher end of the spectrum of change as far as we see it in the Kanban method. And these are things like reorganizations, restructuring your functional units, deploying what's typically called an operational model that's brand new, applying a new matrix model. That kind of stuff we tend to see as not really effective or powerful. And then there are other tools that jump in the picture as well. And that's sort of the if-onlys that we talked about earlier last year. It's things like executive support, it's things like people not resisting change, somehow just magically having more trust, clarifying your OKRs. There's a lot of stuff that we talked about in there that really we think are not as effective as what we talk about in the Kanban method. In fact, we tend to look at a lot of things that are just structure change that always seem to get resistance. And what we're trying to focus on more and more in the Kanban method is this idea of managed evolutionary change. So we looked at the if-onlys because a lot of people seem to look elsewhere for a solution than actually looking at the current state of where they are and then evolving from where they are. And that's the idea that we have in the Kanban method that we're trying to talk more and more about this year, which is the idea that you're starting from a certain position and then evolving from that. It can show up in the teams, it can show up higher level inside the division, it can show up higher level within like the management layer. It just depends on who's actually taking responsibility to lead the change. And that's a change with a focus on the flow of work rather than the actual utilization of the worker or management of the worker, that kind of thing, which typically shows up in a lot of businesses. So that was kind of our if-only sort of thesis at the most, at the overall picture of it. I could dive into it a lot more, but that was the general idea of what we're trying to get across these days, is to let people know, hey, there's another solution right next door to you. You might be using Scrum, you might be using Safe, you might be using nothing, and there's a great place to start from and help improve the flow of your work and ultimately the profitability, the survivability of your organization.
I just finished some classes this week, and the main thing I try to introduce to people is you need to take responsibility for your process. You need to take responsibility for the how the things will evolve. It's not about the method. It's not about the model that you have. It's just okay. Take the responsibility. You need to make the change, and that's the main thing I believe about that presentation that we made last year, because people are expecting for some perfect place to start or some perfect conditions, and the perfect conditions never comes. So we need to start somewhere.
Well, that's the real world. Nothing is ever sort of, so to speak, really clean and pristine where you can start from nothing and then suddenly build off of it. Even the people who practice a lot of large-scale change know that you're dealing with an environment that's not pristine or whatever, and they're trying to land a certain level of change in about 18 months. And over time, I don't think that really plays out well. So yeah, I'm right there with you with your students, and you're teaching your class. The key thing is you have to accept where you are and start from that position and then improve in sort of an evolutionary incremental fashion. And I think that takes a little bit of courage. The most important part, which takes a lot of courage, is saying we're going to focus on the work, not the worker. A lot of people tend to still say, I'm going to focus on the work, especially when you put in that matrix layer where it's utilization of a worker. So our goal is to say, that's, that might be important, but what's really important is delivery of stuff, quality of stuff, getting that through in a reasonable, predictable manner that's sustainable. That's some big stuff right there. That's a big deal.
Perfect, thank you. And let me ask you, this topic, of course, you presented last year, was the end of the year, don't remember exactly the month. But maybe this topic evolved in some moment, maybe some ideas have changed from since there to now. How this topic evolved in your mind since there?
Probably the biggest thing that I've seen, I don't know if I would call it change, more clarification, more emphasis, probably along the lines of how coaches can work in the field with Kanban. So the thing I've been paying closer attention to is watching how coaches approach a problem, how they start to address a problem. And there are very different ways to do it. A lot of people come from one end of the spectrum where it's individual coaching. And then there are people who are more and more gravitating to what we focus on, which is the idea of coaching in a sociological environment. So looking at the group effect, looking at how you actually coach a group of people on a team, or a group of people across multiple teams, or even a group of managers or leaders across an organization. How do you do that effectively? And so one of the tools that we've been playing with here at Kanban University, you probably know of it fairly well, it's the evolutionary change model canvas. So that idea of saying, how do we start from where we are, and how do we want to sort of target where we want to go? And there's this acknowledgement in the Kanban maturity model that you don't have a clear path always. You can build a roadmap, but along the way, the road might change for you. Like any roadmap, literally, it's a hopeful forecast, and you're going to figure out along the way through experimentation if these are the right pathways to take to get to your destination. So a lot of times coaches start off with I'm just going to maybe improve the behavior of individuals on an organizational level. And that can be somewhat useful, but I think a lot of coaches are after let's improve the outcomes for the organization. And so we kind of frame that with our evolutionary change model canvas these days. And we've been spending a lot of time in our Kanban coaching professional material, Kanban coaching practices in particular, with the Kanban maturity model. And we're trying to teach coaches more and more how to expand in that space and be more confident at the sociological level of coaching. And so there's a lot that we've been playing with over the past year in that space around mapping your path and then managing that path and seeing what experiments tell you around the areas of adoption of practices for the Kanban method, but also from the actual leadership level. And the idea that we're trying to get across more and more is the coach isn't the hero. If they are, you're stuck at a lower level of maturity and you're going to be there for a long time. And helping coaches to take a step back and really see the bigger picture that they need to recruit other people to lead. They need to recruit other people to actually take on some of these practice adoption techniques and see how that evolves. Learn how the culture in that sociological realm evolves with it and adapt that pathway. That's a big deal. And I think that's where we're seeing some really interesting results so far, is kind of where people are trying out that stuff. And that's where I'm excited to be right now in terms of learning, is to see how we help organizations evolve. So that's over the past, since last fall, that's probably where I've been spending a lot of my time, is listening to that space and trying to engage in that area.
Excellent, excellent. I use a sentence with my students and say, the map is not more important than the territory. So you of course, you made a map, you understand you had a plan, but some moment, and when you walk, you see a veil, you need to take action about that. That's for me the main part. Also, Joey, I want to use your understanding about the Kanban around the world right now, and talk a little bit about the Kanban adoption worldwide, how things are going, how is the state of the Kanban in the world. Can you share some information about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so overall, we're seeing continued adoption of Kanban throughout the world. Obviously, Brazil's a very heavy adopter of Kanban. We've noticed that for a long time. Yeah, you guys are amazing. I think you have a very unique situation where you are in Brazil to really absorb it as much as you can and use it as much as you can. We also see some Continued growth in Asia as well. In fact, we've had some areas of Asia open up that have been somewhat closed off for various reasons. So we're seeing some improvements there. And actually a little bit of growth continued throughout Europe and the US. So it's interesting to see how things change over time. COVID has definitely shown a lot of interesting changes in adoption. It's hard to say exactly what that is just yet, but we've noticed that there was that spike, and now we're seeing that spike kind of decline a little bit across the US, across Europe, in terms of some of the adoption that happens with the Kanban method. But nothing that's unexpected. I think that's sort of what you would expect to have happen, is that with a crisis, people try new things and then they slow down a little bit. And I have a feeling we're going to see a little bit more pickup after that. But we did recently complete our State of Kanban survey, and I'm still working through it. I had to attend the Kanban Leadership Retreat the past week or so here, which was in Austria, Meyerhofen. So if anyone in Kanban Brazil wants to experience Alps, right, which look like a vertical wall going up basically, and to see David basically hop up the Alps, this is a great experience for a lot of people. It's amazing. So we did that the past week or so here, and now I'm wrapping up some of the Kanban survey results, but I have some preliminary results to share with you, Juliano. Let me see if I can pull out some key things here. Let's go here. Let's see, right. Okay.
I believe it.
Yeah, and I'm just about there.
Ah, one word.
Yeah.
In this meanwhile, pessoal, eu tô passando aqui o link para vocês, tá? Assine o nosso newsletter, tá? Para ficar por dentro de todas as novidades, não perder as atualizações da grade e tudo mais. Ok? Então, aqui está o link, as datas e nossa hashtag oficial. Então, por favor, não perca isso daí. When you're ready, Joey.
Okay. So I'll share a couple of highlights here. Here we go. Hopefully you can see that. Can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, 1 second then.
Maybe.
Oh, okay. So it can't show the screen. So 1 second then. Let's see if I can do a different thing here. Sometimes it requires me to reset stuff for permissions. So let's see if I can.
You're in a Mac. You give some permission first.
Yeah.
Yoshima has the same problem with the things. I need to open the vault here and give all the permissions.
So 1 second, I'm going to have to quit Chrome and jump back into this session. So I'll be right back. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm. Okay. We can.
I'll be right back.
E nesse meio tempo, enquanto o Joey vai lá resolver suas coisas, vamos lá, vamos lembrar alguns dados importantíssimos aqui. Como eu disse para vocês, assine o nosso newsletter, não perca nenhuma das informações. Todas as informações que a gente divulga já vão divulgadas nas nossas redes sociais. Porém, se você assinar o nosso newsletter aqui, você não perde nada. Tá, deixa eu voltar aqui para o amigo Joey.
Okay, let's see if this works.
Here we go.
There we go. All right. So this year we had a little more in terms of submissions for a certain age bracket. So we noticed that 2022 versus 2021. 2022's in the blue, 2021's in the orange. So you can see last year we had a number of more submissions. I think that's because people were more engaged with the online activities of Kanban. Now I think people are a little bit more, less engaged this year in terms of being online with a lot of things. So, but what we did notice this year, which was kind of interesting with the number of submissions we had, was a lot more people in the 30 to 39-year-old bracket. So we saw a lot more people who might be considered early managers or mid-level managers showing up now, submitting responses. And out of that, they indicated that they were a manager or lead. So this year we saw an increase in terms of coaches, managers, and a couple more executives. And we saw a few less consultants, project managers, team members, that kind of thing showing up in terms of submissions for our survey. So that was kind of an interesting fact.
This delta here, this table is about the delta, right? Since the last year to now. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that, Juliano. Yeah, that's
no worry.
That's what we're looking at here. And something else we thought that was kind of exciting was the idea that financial services had increased in terms of number of responses. But on top of that, we saw that we had two types of people responding more or less to our survey. People with a lot of experience, more than 8 years, or people who had not used Kanban yet. So that was something else that we noticed that was kind of interesting in terms of the submission data. The one interesting thing that we kind of dived in on, or I dived in on this time, and we're still processing a lot of this, but one thing that was kind of exciting to see was adoption of Kanban outside of the typical areas. And with that, I wanted to know, well, where are you starting from and where are you going to with the Kanban method? Where are you adopting it inside your organization? And so in terms of adoption, where do you start from? People are starting from typically engineering, IT, sometimes software development, sometimes general operations, sometimes product development. And so those are some of the top 5 areas where they started from. Then I asked, based on these top 5 areas, kind of where do you think you're going? And I categorized their responses initially. So I said, if you're not in IT, I'll count you as non-IT. So I'm going from IT to non-IT, or am I going from IT to more IT? And you can see here that most of our responses indicated they're going to non-IT. So they're starting from a place where you saw earlier, engineering, general operations, IT, and then they're moving into effectively what we call non-IT. And then I investigated a little further to say, well, what is the non-IT categories? What does that look like? And we saw that people are moving into things like product development, support, marketing, HR, general operations, R&D, and then on up to things like procurement, sales, finance, and accounting. So it was really exciting to see that people are starting to understand that they can use Kanban not just in IT, but also in product development, which can be a blend of things, right? It can be a blend of support and marketing and HR. But it's exciting to see that you can see Kanban's getting adopted by various parts of the business. I really love to see the HRs picking it up because I think it can help them out a lot. That's human resources, by the way. So those are some of the basic examples of what we saw in terms of adoption. And the final thing that I wanted to share with you right now is that 78% of our respondents said they have challenges with their Kanban initiatives. Of that, one in particular that caught my attention was team resistance. And so team resistance to using the Kanban method, that could be any number of our practices. A very common one that people struggle with, both as coaches, managers, and teams, is the idea of limiting the work in progress. And I have a funny feeling that over time, we're going to find that as we develop and release more of our product for our Kanban Coaching Professional program, you're going to see people really getting good and comfortable at addressing things like team resistance from a coaching level. So that was kind of the highlight there of the survey. There's going to be a lot more that I share with you guys. Todd and I are working on that right now in terms of the overall report. So hopefully you'll see something from us in the not too distant future on that. Probably in the next few weeks here, we'll have something that comes together and gets published. So stay tuned for that. We'll have the full report ready this summer for sure for people to look at. So as you're sitting by the pool, relaxing, or in the case of Brazil, you might be sitting by the fire, relaxing, you can at least, read this report and kind of get your head wrapped around more of what the Kanban method is and how people are using it throughout the world.
Wow, excellent. No, thank you for sharing this in firsthand to us. People understand the importance of that. With this data was not released yet, and we have the opportunity to see it first. Whoa, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome, Juliano. The only people who have seen this were in Austria in a small room. So it's kind of like the introduction of like just a little bit of the information. But yeah, you guys are getting the first glimpse of this here online.
Oh, thank you for that. It was an honor. Joy, the last thing I want to ask you is, please invite people to go to the conference. And of course, I'm inviting you to come to the conference. If you can't come, it's September 28 and 29. Please come. But invite people to go to the conference and say about maybe the importance of come to conference to network, this kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll be happy to share that, Juliano. So I encourage everyone to come to the Kanban Brazil conference. It's going to be a great one as usual, and probably even more interesting because we haven't been meeting that much in person lately. In Brazil, I know it's happened a little bit more. But for people outside of Brazil, I would encourage you to go to a physical conference like Kanban Brazil. I just wrapped up about half a week, more or less, in Austria at a conference there, and it was amazing. It was so much fun. And you forget sometimes just how effective it is to meet in person. So you can bounce from conversation to conversation. There's no Zoom setup. There's no, Google Meet setup. You just simply turn and you say, hey, let's talk for a second. And it's just kind of mind-blowing to do that again. Plus you can go out and walk and talk, which is just kind of a humongous thing. And then there are the happenstance conversations that you have where you sit down and you're talking to someone next to you. You get to know someone new, completely new to talk to. And maybe actually develop and work with in terms of things related to Kanban. So I highly advise you to go to the Kanban Brazil conference. Be safe as always, right? Protect yourself, but definitely get out there and network with people. It's a huge deal. So yeah, come to Kanban Brazil, Juliano. If I can make it, I will. I don't know my calendar for September yet, but if I'm given the wings to fly, I shall fly over and visit you guys and try my best at my Portuguese knowledge so far and see how well I can do it. But yeah, it'd be great to have people show up at Kanban Brazil. I can tell you it's going to be awesome. That's for sure.
Don't worry about the Portuguese. We will give you all the support we can.
Thanks.
Joey, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk. And guys, please come to the conference, sign for the newsletter, and follow us in our social networks, and we will have all the information coming. And don't forget, June 26th is the last day for our call for papers, and so hurry.
That's right.
we don't have time.
Right, 2 more days. That's all that's left. 2 more days.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Joey. Have
All
a
right.
great weekend.
Thank you, Juliano.